All right, what's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here, doing a preview for the RBC Heritage, which is being played at Harbor Town. And this is a really cool track because it's going to be very different from anything that we've experienced up to this point. To say that this course is a less than driver course is probably putting it mildly. The driving distance here year after year is one of the lowest on tour. You just can't bomb it. There's no reason to. It's more about positioning the ball in the fairway and then hitting greens after that. There's a lot of tree-lined fairways, so you really can't afford to hit it into the rough. You're going to have an obstructive view the entire time. But the way that they situate these dog legs essentially means really no reason to bomb it. Really can't get away with it. I was reading some of the quotes from the practice rounds, and there were guys saying that they hit one driver in 18 holes during a practice round. So that's how serious we're talking here. This is very much, guys will not be hitting drivers off the tee. It's significant. Okay, so here is the lobby or the player pool for the RBC Heritage being led by Matt Kuchar. Before we jump into that, let's talk about some of the key stats that I'm looking for this week. If you are new, these are my key stats that I put together. What I then do is I rank them, and then I give basically a power rank for the players who have the lowest total sum of their ranks. Although I've gone a little bit further this week and I've introduced something else called a score. I'll come up with a cooler name for that, but let's discuss that for a second. I didn't like that the power rankings just put everyone in 1, 2, 3, 4 order. There were definitely times where guys who were ranked number 1 were significantly better than number 2. And there were other times where maybe 1 and 2 were very close or almost even. And those power rankings don't really show that. So what I assigned here is a score. I calculated a score based on the sum of the ranks and comparing it to the average. So the average is 50. 100 is a perfect score. I doubt we're going to get there. I think you'd really have to be like ranked number 1 in all 4 or 5, however many key stat categories that I do. But 88's pretty strong. We'll probably see guys in the low 90s, but 50 is the average. So that's what you're looking at here. Okay, why I chose these key stats. I went with good drive percentage. I didn't go with driving distance. I didn't go with driving accuracy. Good drive percentage is a stat that is calculated based on, do you hit the green if your drive was in the fairway or in the fringe? Think about that. So what I'm trying to accomplish is, I don't think it's good enough to just hit fairways at Harbor Town. You need to be on the proper side of the fairway. So what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of guys who are aiming for the right half of the fairway or the left half, trying to position their next shot. Good drive percentage is an indicator of success there. Next, strokes gained approach. These have, I believe they are the smallest greens on tour. If not, they're one of like the 2 or 3 smallest greens on tour. So I want guys, I thought about doing proximity. I thought about doing greens in regulation. I didn't really think that did it justice, so I just went for strokes gained approach. And then I went with strokes gained around the green. Since these greens are so small, a lot of guys are not going to be hitting them very often, or if they do, they're going to need to scramble, they're going to need to get up and down. I think there's some flaws with the scrambling statistic. That's a conversation for another day, but I like the strokes gained around the green stat, so I went there. Next up, I did par 4 birdie or better. So this is actually a par 71. It's 4 par 3s, 3 par 5s. So from your standard par 72, we've removed one of the par 5s and made it a par 4. So since there is an additional par 4 this week, I'm leaning a bit more on the par 4 birdie or better for this course. And then, of course, I'm going to go with Bogey Avoidance. This is probably going to be in here every single week, but it's kind of been interesting. The last couple years have been not really a slugfest. Sometimes when you see these weaker fields or fields after majors or something like that, the scores can get ridiculous. Like they can go on 20 under being the winning score. Probably not going to happen here. Last year's winning score was 9 under. Then it was 2 guys in second were 7 under. Then it immediately went to 5 under. So that's not tearing it up by any means. 2015 was a little bit of an outlier. They did go low at 18 under. But 2014 was back to what we'd kind of expect this year, which is, again, 11, 10, maybe 9 under par to win this thing. So I don't think you have to be 20 under par to win it. So I want guys who can avoid that bogey number. Okay, we've talked about the stats. I will reference those, but let's jump right into some of the players. This field is certainly led by Matt Kuchar, checking in at 11,500. You know that he made that charge on Sunday at the Masters, makes a hole-in-one, makes all his DraftKings owners happy. He is the chalk for a reason. Let's see, last couple years here. Tie for 9th, 5th, and a win in the last 3 years. He's 12 out of 13 in cuts made, 5 top 10s. He's the horse here. Fade at your own risk. I probably won't have as much of him in GPPs because I'm a contrarian. I prefer to just kind of stay away and hope everybody else plays him and he kind of lays an egg at 11,500. But that's me. If I was playing a cash game, I think he'd be in every single lineup. Russ Henley and Brandt Snedeker, both fine options, but I think it's worth pointing out Brandon Grace, who for the last few weeks, maybe last few months, has been virtually unplayable. Brandon Grace peaked at, I want to say he peaked at like 11th in the world rankings, something like that, maybe 11th or 13th. Has kind of been in a free fall to start, the calendar year or since the end of last season. Has been cut a couple of times on the PGA Tour. Wasn't playing particularly well at the Masters. He shoots 76, 74. But then he backs that up with a 71-70, and he comes in with one of the better weekend rounds. And he's the defending champion. So now we've got this dilemma where you've got a guy who hasn't shown anything in 4 months except for the last 2 rounds he's played, and he's the defending champion. He presents an interesting option. I don't know what the industry is going to think of him, but I'm going to bite the bullet and have some exposure to Grace here. Okay, Kevin Kisner, a guy that we need to point out. Let me pull up his stats here. So he had a second place finish in 2015, but the reason that the industry is so high on Kisner is basically these key stats. He matches up really well for this course. Here he is here. So really good around the greens, really good on par 4 birdie or better. He's been playing well recently, so T43 at the Masters, whatever. But if you look back, if we count this 11th as a 10th place, or we don't even have to. He basically has 4 top 10s in his last 7 starts. I'm counting an 11th place as a top 10, I understand. But basically 4 top 10s in his last 11, has good course history here. This sets up really well for him. Okay, Terrell Hatton here at $9,300. Screwed everyone at the Masters. One of the highest owned players on the slate, I believe. Shoots 80-78. Let that sink in. 14 over in 2 rounds, gets cut, never even comes close. Scores 8 DraftKings points. Not good. Not good at all. Are you prepared to forgive and forget? I think I am. I'm willing to overlook and take his last 5 tournaments before that. No worse than a T13. This is a weak field. Opportunity for him to bounce back. I'll bite the bullet. I'm a sucker for or a glutton for punishment, so I'll be back on Hatton this week. Okay, we'll go quickly here. I like Adam Hadwin. I think Charlie Hoffman is fine. Jason Duffner, great too. Those guys are all fit the mold of the type of player that we're looking for this week. They look really good in the key stats department. Keegan does as well. But I do want to point out Pat Perez, who to me is criminally underpriced. We'll talk about this when we get to the odds at the end. Pat Perez, very much underpriced at $8,100. Really good showing at the Masters. Really good showing at the Arnold Palmer in his last 2 events. Those are, I can't think of another one, those are the toughest fields that we've had this season. Pat Perez has a really good showing in both of those. Still having an outstanding year. T3 at the Tournament of Champions, T4 at the Palmers, a T14 at Pebble Beach. These are legit courses with legit fields. If we look at my key stats again, Pat Perez is right above Kevin Kisner. I just told you that Kisner is a good fit for this course. Pat Perez, I have him ranked higher in just the things that I'm looking at. Again, that's not my opinion. I'm grabbing the stats that I think are good for the course that I've researched, and we're adding it all up. That's not my opinion. It's in these 5 categories, Pat Perez is slightly better than Kevin Kisner, and he's only $8,100 compared to Kisner's $9,700. So I think this price is wrong. We will talk more about that when we get to the odds in a minute. This is probably going to go longer than I want, but I've got a lot of guys to talk about. I'm excited about this. And I think you deserve it because it's a weaker field. There's probably a lot of guys you're going to have to roster that you would never consider rostering. Wes Bryant, we've talked about him before. You know that I think he is going to win on tour at some point. I love this kid's game. Throw out those last 2 times he's teed it up. Again, look back at this start. We've said it before. He's going to be volatile. He's essentially a rookie. I think this is actually his rookie year, but he did get some experience last year. But technically, I think this is his rookie season. The guy's close, okay? He's getting really close. This is the type of course that sets up really well for him. Not a long hitter by any means, but accurate, really, really good around the green. So Wes Bryant is a guy that I like. Anirban Lahiri. Okay, we've talked about him once before, and it was at the Honda Classic where I think he was in 2nd or 3rd at one point, drops to T11, but that's a great showing for a guy in this price range. I want to show you something here. Also, this spreadsheet that I put together, if I haven't said it, it's on DFS On Demand. It's got a million cool tabs on it. Anirban Lahiri. This chart is the last 5 years at the RBC Heritage and then the last 10 weeks on either tour, the Euro or the PGA. It's sorted by DraftKings points per round. Lahiri is right here, number 7. Only 6 guys have scored more DraftKings points per round than Lahiri over the course of the last 10 calendar weeks. He's played 6 events. That's a pretty good sample. And there's some good names above this. Wes Bryant again pops up. Russ Henley pops up. Sung Kang pops up. You know, he had a couple killer rounds there. DA points, he went really low. That's probably based around, I mean, I would probably play him again this week, but that DA points is probably based around one tournament where he shot 20 under. But you get the idea here. These guys are playing well week after week, and they're underpriced. Okay, real quick, 2 more for you. This one doesn't count. I like Luke List. Still 2 more. Where is he? Danny Lee. We'll talk about more in a second with odds, but I want you to look at his finishes. Last 4 tournaments, 3 top 22s. I don't think he can particularly win this thing, but I think he'll be fine. And then, Zac Blair. So, let's go to stats real quick. Zac Blair pops up right here. $6,500, my 7th ranked golfer in key stats. And the reason being, Zac Blair, I believe, if he is not the shortest hitter on tour, he's one of like the bottom 5. No driving distance whatsoever. Does not matter here. If there was one course that I could handpick Zac Blair to play in, it would be this one. He's only $6,500. He does not make bogeys. Only 11%. That is the 4th best bogey avoidance on this slate. Very accurate driver of the ball. Very good on approach shots. Excellent around the greens. 6,500, and I think, stand by 1 second. If you've listened this long, you're going to keep listening to the end. Zac Blair. Oh, he's made the cut in his last 2 here. I thought he had more sample size than that, but he's made the cut in 2 straight. I think you could do much worse here. Okay, Let's quickly jump to the odds here. This is the thing I like to do because I think it's so valuable. Again, what we're looking for here is the salaries usually mimic the odds set from Vegas to win a golf tournament. When they don't match up is where you get inefficiencies. So let's look through this. This is sorted by salaries. Hatton, 25 to 1. He should probably be a couple $100 cheaper, maybe $700 cheaper. Matt Fitzpatrick should probably be $500. I'm sorry, $500 more expensive. Hatton should have been more expensive. Some of these guys are a little bit public players, so their odds aren't entirely accurate. But Luke Donald, 33 to 1. I think he's like the all-time money winner here. Dude's got unreal results. Let's see, there's a couple more. Lucas Glover, he's my number one golfer, isn't he? Yeah. Lucas Glover, my number one golfer. Okay, so here's a couple big ones. Martin Laird, you can see is 1.2 to win, 1.2% to win this thing, priced in a range with a bunch of guys who have 0.5% to win. So 1.2%, he should probably be, oh, sorry, jumping all over the place. Maybe up here, low 7,000s, a couple $100 more. Here's that group, Danny Lee, a little less than 1%. He should probably be a few $100 more. And then I thought there was one more down here. Thought there was one guy who jumped out. Oh, Martin Laird. Did we talk about Martin Laird? Am I going crazy? 80 to 1 to win. You can see the green ones here. So Glover, Stanley, Webb Simpson, Danny Willett. He's probably a little more public than he should be. But you can see that there's obviously inefficiencies in the pricing. Not huge, but they're there. And they're already on the guys that we like anyway. So it kind of tips you over a little bit more. Okay, we went way longer than I wanted to, but I hope you enjoyed it. It's a weaker field, which means guys like us who have done our research tend to do better than the public. If you have any questions, tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand or shoot a comment below. I'll talk to you guys soon. Best of luck.